Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It's remaining fairly unsettled, but perhaps by the time middle to the end of next working week we could be turning much drier with higher pressure building in. With that higher pressure in the longer term, as we'll see in the GFS, GEM, ECMWF and the ensembles, could start to give us some very interesting additions towards the second half of the month. There is potential for some blocking patterns to develop, but where that sends the air masses from, that is what we've got to decipher. As I keep saying, we are seeing some very interesting developments on some of the ensemble members. We have some very warm ensemble members, but we also now have some very cold ensemble members for the end of the month, or at least the last 10 days. So all cards are still on the table, and we'll have to see exactly what happens with that over the course of the next couple of weeks. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. So to start on the live radar, you can see we do have a lot of rain pushing in at the moment. Most of it though is moderate to light, and it is turning more patchy as it progresses eastwards. The heaviest rain, or the most persistent rain, really will be along the south, into the London area, down into the southeast, perhaps parts of southern Wales, and pushing into northern England and Scotland as well. But a big weather front moving in, a warm front, so it's not going to be too bad behind the rain this afternoon and the cloud. It won't be too bad. The temperature's perhaps 13 to 15 degrees, but under the cloud it will feel pretty miserable, and won't be particularly pleasant. We're going this around midday, and if we put in the temperatures, you'll be able to see that they're not too bad, but they're best in the west, worse in the east under the thicker cloud, and precipitation, more blues mixing in there, so temperatures around that sort of 9 or 10 degree mark. Further west, maybe as high as 13, 14 or 15 degrees. So not too bad in western areas today, but that's because they saw the rain earlier this morning, and this afternoon they're going to be into some more cloudy and sunnier conditions rather than the heavier rain or moderate rain really that is pushing further eastwards. But it should fade by this evening, so for bonfire night tonight, or official bonfire night tonight, if you've got any firework displays tonight, it might be a little bit better. There will still be showers around, there still will be cloud around, but it will at least be a little bit milder, and hopefully won't be too much persistent rain around. If you go to the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and the temperatures doing over the next 5 days, if we do run through this, you can see over the course of this afternoon, you can see that precipitation progressing eastwards and eventually clearing the far east by this evening. Could be some bit of persistent rain in the far west and maybe in the far southeast over night tonight, but it only comes in around midnight. So hopefully most of the firework displays and stuff like that this evening are out of the way by the time a lot of this rain comes in. So luckily, it looks like there could be a brief drier patch before this moves in. So we'll have to see exactly what happens with that. But yeah, brief dry patch perhaps for fireworks tonight. But tomorrow, more rain pushes in, but in the form more of showers, especially through the morning. And as we head towards the afternoon, you can see again just continued showers pushing in, just because we've got this very unsettled theme. And again, if you've got any fireworks tomorrow night, there will be some dry spells around, but also be a few heavier showers. So you've got to keep that in mind. And into Monday, again, more heavier rain pushing in at times. Maybe a squall line there developing through Tuesday morning for clearing eastwards and fizzling away and just remaining fairly unsettled. But give it another couple of days, we'll start to see that high pressure build in, perhaps by the end of next week, around sort of the 12th, 13th, 14th of November. So another couple of days of these videos, and we'll be able to see that higher pressure finally builds in. Maybe have a look at what sort of those temperatures will be doing. Again, it all depends on the position of the high pressure, whether we see a bit of an inversion, so colder nights but moderate sort of average sort of days, or whether we do see quite a warm southerly push, meaning quite mild days and nights. So we'll have to see exactly what happens with that. If you go over to the max temperatures now and see what's happening over the next 5 days in regards to that, you can see this afternoon those temperatures, as I said, around 10 to 13 degrees, maybe peaking 14 in the far west. Overnight tonight, the far southeast remains fairly mild. Further northwards and westwards under clearer skies, a little bit cooler, and tomorrow afternoon you can see those temperatures once again rising to around 11 to 13 degrees. So again, average really, maybe slightly above average this time of year. Into Monday, you can see those temperatures once again rising to maybe 13 or 14 or 15 degrees, so slightly above average really there. And we will be going more progressively above average into next week as milder air masses do push more in from the west. And you can see by Tuesday, again, 13, 14, 15 in the east, maybe cooler in the west with slightly cooler air mass pushing in again. We're going to be seeing oscillating air masses. So we're going to have some cooling days, but we'll also have some very mild days. And into Wednesday, you can see perhaps more towards 12 to 14 degrees. So you can see the surface conditions over the course of the next 5 days. Quite a lot of rain around, on and off. So we'll be dry spells, and the temperatures generally around average, maybe slightly above average for this time of year. So if we do now go over to the GFS and see what that is showing over the next couple of weeks, now you can see we got a westerly flow at the moment. We had a brief ridge of high pressure yesterday, that's why things were dry, but low pressure pushing in at the moment, and we'll go very unsettled over the next week or so. But you can see by the end of next week, Thursday, Friday time, high pressure builds back in. Initially, a bit of a southerly flow, so it could be quite mild. But the higher pressure doesn't hold on for too long on today's run. And again, it has been oscillating quite a bit between how big the extent of the higher pressure is. But you can see low pressure running in off the Atlantic. And then we see a bit of blocking over Greenland. And look at that, some very weird sort of pattern there. We see a bit of a reversal in the flow towards Scandinavian Greenland with more of an easterly flow there. And what this does is push cold air out of the Arctic, and you can see the -5 line, sort of a persistent -5 line, is towards Iceland, Scandinavia, which isn't too unusual in the winter. But we're at the end of November here, so cold air is getting pushed out of the Arctic, heading perhaps towards the UK. Again, this wouldn't turn us anything bitterly cold, because we need more of a northerly or easterly this time of year to see anything cold, but it could power up the lower pressures and turn us generally below average in the longer term. So again, we'll just have to see what happens with that. And again, you can see that blocking pattern by going into the northern hemisphere. And you can see this big blob of green in the middle of the North Pole, and that's a big area of blocking higher pressure, which is trying to shift the jet. And if we did see that connect to the Azores high, we see a bit of an extension there towards Greenland, we'd see this flow turn more northerly or easterly, and that could be something we've got to keep an eye on for the last week of November into the start of December. If that did come off, that would turn us cold, and that would be a route to seeing some very early wintry weather. But again, skeptical, it is something we have been seeing on the winter look aheads, that sort of northerly or easterly sort of flow with high pressure up towards Greenland. So we'll have to see. But it is encouraging that we are still seeing this blocking pattern. So while the winter look aheads are still sort of looking like they could be verifying here, again, we have been flip-flopping a lot with this sort of blocking pattern. It is very uncertain. But for the time being, very interesting seeing this pattern so far. If you go to the GM, see how that does compare over the next 10 days. Again, a westerly flow at the moment, remaining fairly unsettled. High pressure building in with a big southerly flow initially. Don't think it's quite mild, and then we just stay with a westerly flow, really. As the upper air temperatures quite mild, actually, so quite warm. Maybe the 10 to sort of 12 degree isotherm moving in there, so we see temperatures in the mid-teens. So this is complete contrast to the GFS. Not showing anything really at all. Look at the northern hemisphere view. Very little blocking towards the northern hemisphere. A bit of ridging up towards Canada and North America in general, but really for the UK we're not seeing much at all. The tropospheric polar vortex is pretty much intact there, all stuck together, all those blues and purples all stuck together. So yeah, not showing anything majorly there, and this is why there's so much uncertainty, because the GFS, yes, it doesn't go crazy cold, but it shows us those blocking patterns, shows us a route towards more interesting, colder sort of regimes, but the GM definitely just stay more of a westerly pattern. Now if we go to the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, high pressure in at the moment, but low pressure rumbling in over the next couple of days, and then we see that big high pressure build in, and we do end the run at day 10, yes, with a westerly flow, but it's starting to look similar to the GFS, with that ridging towards Greenland to the North Pole, and the wind direction coming in more of a northerly, feeding into these lows. And you can see that, but look at that cold air is feeding into Iceland at the -15 line, getting towards Iceland. And the -5 line, yes, coming from a northwesterly direction, is starting to reach the UK. So again, it wouldn't be anything crazy cold, but it would be a route to us being colder than average. And if we go to the northern hemisphere view, look at the upper air temperatures, the pressure charts, you can see how there is blocking towards the North America side of the pole, and that is pulling a northerly wind out the North Pole towards northern Europe and towards the mid-Atlantic. So it would pour a lot of cold air towards us. Whether we get a direct hit or not, that is yet to be determined, but interesting seeing this both from the ECMWF and the GFS of the tropospheric polar vortex moving to our side of the pole, towards Russia, towards Scandinavia, northeast Europe. And that doesn't mean we're going to go cold, but it does mean that if we did see a blocking pattern, if we did see some ridging, we did see some amplification, the cold air is very close by. So that's something we need to keep an eye on towards the second half of the month. But very interesting runs today, and we can see this better by having a look at the ensembles. Now, this is the latest 6 o'clock run. Hasn't fully updated yet. Only got out to the 18th, only 12 or 13 days out. It needs to be generally mild over the next week or so. But around the 15th of November, that's the day 10 point, we trend much more towards average, and we actually see quite a few colder runs. Now, of course, -5 line is sort of the area where we need for any wintry weather. That's for anything significant wintry weather, that is. We can be sort of -2, -3 and see some cold, frosty weather. And you can see quite a few ensemble members getting close by, and generally we turn towards average around the sort of the 16th to the 20th of November, but there is massive scatter there. But as I said, we haven't got the full run here. But if we do have a look at the dew point as well, you can see definitely trending down in the longer term, more towards 1, 2, 3 degrees, so colder air masses pushing in. And again, you can see that on the 2-meter temperatures, but look at those temperatures really dipping back down to maybe the high single digits. But one good thing is, with the precipitation there, you see a big gap there around the 9th to the 13th, 14th, so dry weather for at least 3 or 4 days. But I did want to have a look at the midnight run, which has fully come out. And you can see, if we put in the area of the HPA temperatures, look at that dip right at the end. You can see some of those ensemble members getting close to that -5 or lower. And you can see quite a few down to that 0 to -5 region. Again, not showing us anything significantly cold, but below average, trending down. Shows us that the last 10 days could be average to colder than average. Again, it can't say definitely be colder than average because we're only seeing a slight trend here, but the signal from both the winter look aheads and now appearing on some of the operational runs, some of the ensemble members, or quite a few of the ensemble members, is for below average temperatures towards the end of November. And of course, if we see anything significantly below average, then we could be going very cold, and that is something, as I said, we have been seeing on the winter look aheads. But we've got a good 2 weeks or so until we get to any of that potential, and for the time being, it's running very unsettled for the next 5 days or so. High pressure building in around Thursday, Friday next week, and then that high pressure is going to keep us nice and dry for a good few days. And then once that high pressure does start to break down and move, that's where things are coming very uncertain and very interesting to see where that goes, whether it just breaks down again to a flat westerly like the GEM or the GFS and East in the air, where we see some ridging and maybe a shift to more of a colder regime. So I have to see what happens with that. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a good weekend, and I'll see you again for another video soon.